Okay, what item are we on exactly now?
Item number 4 is actually his presentation of the single audit report. In this report, basically there's a couple of the opinions from our firm. One is on the report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of the financial statement performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Just a brief overview of the audit result. On the financial statement side, the types of auditors report is an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statement are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle. However, we do have some internal control over financial reporting that we identified during our audit, which disclose all of them we consider as material weaknesses. The first finding that we have is the use of restricted cash on unrestricted purposes. The second findings that we have is management overriding internal control. There's some mismanagement, especially dealing with the project and the budget process that we noted. There are certain procedures that is not in place, not really following the typical policy and procedures. And the last one is the internal balances, and there's some internal control is not in place. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, let's start with Councilmember McKee.
Are you satisfied that the internal controls we now have in place enable us to catch things like this and figure out what's going on in these circumstances?
We just finished up our internal, the second phase of the audit for 2014 here. And we are still in the process of reviewing all the implementation. As of this point, I don't have any conclusion, but we notice that there's a lot of significant improvement.
There's a discussion that in the document that we lost approximately $11,300,000 that we lost in net funds in 1 year.
That's correct.
We went in and cleaned up the CIP that had unfunded projects going back all the way to 2009. So there was a big hit on our general fund this year, and that's why.
I've already talked to Mr. Poon about the situation as far as what these mistakes are and how they should have been dealt with, so I won't deal with that.
Okay, Councilmember Betts.
There's a lot here that we need to be very concerned about. If I read this correctly, we got 5 material weaknesses in internal controls, 2 material non-compliance matters, and a going concern. On item 201303, page 15, looks like we got non-compliance with debt covenants, and I just want to make sure that management has made all the reporting disclosure in relation to the bonds. This would seem to be a reportable event to the bondholders. Am I correct in that? Do you concur?
This has been reported. It's been reported to the SA and the Oversight Board. We're also projecting that we may not have enough cash in fiscal year 15-16 to make this debt service, so we may have to go into the reserve again. What happened in the past is there was a magical account called Fund 210, and if you were doing a capital project, you charged it there, and then in the past the money would be found. Well, when the RDA went away and then the market turned down, it wasn't as easy to figure out how to pay for it after the fact.
Generally, if I'm reading this audit report correctly, despite having internal controls and procedures in place, those internal controls and procedures were overridden by the past city manager. I'm speaking about Rick Daniels, not Bob Adams. In other words, the surprise $6.9 million budget hole that threatened to put the city into bankruptcy. When you have a city manager who overrides those functions, do you have a suggestion on what the city council can do to prevent a situation where a city manager is excluding the finance director and other people who have a role in the checks and balances and internal controls and procedures?
Sure. Basically, a couple of things. One is the tone at the top. At the city council level, you should have a policy and procedures in place in order for you to communicate with city management. The other thing that I will highly recommend as of this point, you should have an ad hoc committee.
So what the council was getting wasn't accurate information. Sometimes ways that you could set up an internal control to make sure that never happens again. And once there's a problem that happens, you say, how can we correct it? Now, we've got great staff now, but we sat here for years without knowing that this was going on. Somebody said, how the heck didn't you guys know it? Well, we were deceived. And we were purposely deceived, and the system was manipulated. You know, their question is, how the heck could this get missed through previous audits, this type of stuff going on? And I have to ask the city attorney, are we proceeding with your investigation to determine if there is any cause of action by this council against the previous auditor? And you and I will remember a meeting when you first got here. I attempted to sit down with you in a meeting, and somebody stormed in that meeting and said, that's it, you're not meeting with the auditors without me, this meeting is over. And that meeting was over, wasn't it?
Yep. Yes, it was.
Okay, so not only did you have a city manager doing what he shouldn't have been doing with personnel, but when the council member was making legitimate inquiries into these type of problems, he was preventing council members from meeting with the auditor.
I don't believe in auditors meeting with council members, and the reason I don't is because a council member's political influence can be made upon your decision making and your report writing. It might be practiced in a lot of cities that it happens that way, and you do give reports directly to the city council members. But I just feel any type of situation like that becomes politically motivated sometimes, and in your decision making. I'm not saying it has, and I'm not saying that you're unprofessional. I'm just saying that's the reason I didn't meet with you.
As when I had my own CPA practice, I would tell my clients, do not trust me, because I don't want them getting in the habit, if I get run over by a bus, heaven forbid, but I don't want them in the habit of trusting their bookkeeper, their accountant, their whoever.
Okay, okay, Mr. Pun. Let me ask you a question here. What other cities, do you meet with council members in other cities?
Yes, I do.
So that's not an issue, so it's fine
Not
to
an
meet with,
issue.
so it's fine to meet with council members. I agree. Okay, the next question is this. What other cities do you work with where they actually have oversight over the administrative financial director?
There's a lot of cities out there. City of Fairfield, up north in the Bay Area, town of Danville. They have a really active audit committee meeting. San Diego.
I'm not talking about the audit committee. I'm talking about.
Correct. That is part. The whole audit committee is actually part of the council.
Okay, but under that city, do they still have hire over the administrative services director?
As I recall, yes.
How big is that city?
It's a town of about 30,000 population.
Okay, Councilmember McKee.
I understand the position you're taking. The problem is, as a member of the Finance Committee that was working on this problem for a year before it really popped up, we were being given numbers that weren't right at that point. That could happen with an audit committee. I mean, I don't see. I think the crux of what Councilmember Betts, sorry, Scott, is saying is that the whistleblower portion of our policies is not strong enough in this case, because the city manager can actually manipulate the financial services director in their day-to-day operation. We need to have them report directly to us so that manipulation is not possible.
Is management integrity issues that the previous auditor should deal with, because basically at the very beginning of, be honest, we do have management integrity issue. At one point, we actually considered to resign because of management integrity issues.
So what you're saying is.
Hey, Councilmember Betts.
Okay, so as Councilmember McKee said, we had a finance committee that trying to get information was like pulling teeth. It just wasn't coming. I mean, they met for 6-7 months before they even started to get an inkling of information. When they finally did get it, it was wrong. And then now we're hearing that an auditor was near resigning because it was so bad.
Have the same situation if the administrative services director is hired directly, is a direct hire of the council, as what we already went through. It's just a different title, same scenario.
I'm just trying to see, is there another way to do this, Mr. McKee, other than what's on the table right now?
Let me ask Mr. Poon one question. Sure. Is it possible for an administrative services person to fool you?
Well, we actually evaluate management integrity.
That's-
That's always ways to fool us around.
The question is simpler than that.
Right.
Is it possible to create books that you look at that are manipulated well enough that you can't find something?
Always ways to.
And see, my problem with what Councilmember Pai is talking about is we had a situation where both the financial services director and the city manager were manipulating accounts. And my view is that, I hope the financial services director was being told to do that rather than doing it on their own, but I don't know. My point is that there should be a division between the financial services director and the city manager. And I'll use, I hate doing this because I whinge every time you say factory, Russ. In a factory, there is a division, natural division between quality control and production. And quality control is basically in a position that no one in the factory, from the factory manager to the people running production to the maintenance department, anyone in the factory cannot tell them anything. They report directly to quality control in the corporate structure because of that. And from my standpoint, that's sort of what Russ is trying to set up here, is that separation so that the person that's in the administrative services position can feel comfortable with doing the right thing, no matter what they're being told. Because in effect, what's going to happen in this case is if there is a problem, that person's going to have to come in the open and talk about it. It's not going to be something that can be shifted around. And, that's sort of what I'm seeing here. I understand Councilmember Pai and Councilmember Mattis's position as far as it being political. That's a smaller risk because it's out in the open than it is to have a collusion between the two people, from my perspective. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Here's my last comment. This is very serious. And I know that we're dealing with a massive financial emergency right now.
Correct.
Which we never again want any other council to have to face. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's very painful. Mm-hmm. Very painful.
Yes.
But we want to set the tone for the future.
Yes.
Because that's what our goal is here. It's not going to be easy to dig a way out of this financial crisis. Mm-hmm. It's going to take many years.
Yes.
But at the same time, we're setting the tone and the policy for the future of the city of Desert Hot Springs. And it's never an easy process. So I'll go ahead and just call for the vote.
Motion passes with council members Pai and Mattis voting no.